Good morning. It is Saturday, October 20th, 2018, and we have 17 days until the midterm elections on November 6th. And as you can see up on our notepad, we have a single issue to look at today. And so let's not fritter away any time on the desk. Let's just go right out into the big wide world and find out what's going on with these migrants from Honduras. And you remember we mentioned this a couple of days ago in our broadcast, and it was about 1,000 people. Has anything changed? Let's go find out. The first story is from Sputnik, and the title reads, Migrant Caravan Tears Down Guatemalan Border Gate and Rushes into Mexico. Look at that picture. I just would like for you guys to really, as much as possible, I'm going to leave the pictures up, and I want you to, just look at them and think about them as we proceed through the broadcast today. So, this is Sputnik, and it was reported on 10/19 yesterday at, and it was updated this morning. Earlier this week, U.S. President Donald Trump said he could send the U.S. military to close the border with Mexico due to a wave of illegal immigration from Central American countries. Thousands of migrants heading for the U.S. rushed through the border between Mexico and Guatemala on a bridge spanning the Suchiat, and I don't know, river. Mexican broadcaster reported Friday. So that would have been yesterday. The news came after U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo addressed the migration crisis. Quote, "We are quickly reaching a point which appears to be a moment of crisis. A record number of migrants," Foreign Secretary, I'm not even going to try. "And I spoke about the importance of stopping this flow from before it reached the U.S. border," close quote, Pompeo said during a joint press conference in Mexico City. The UN, quote, the UN high, his Mexican counterpart, this guy here, stated that his country would work with the U.S. to find a permanent solution to the migration crisis. Quote, "The UN High Commissioner for Refugees has become involved in the process to help Mexican immigration officials confront current challenges and hopefully in the future work together to find a permanent solution for immigrants," close quote. The Mexican counterpart of Pompeo told reporters regarding the Honduran caravan of immigrants making its way to the Mexican border from Guatemala. Earlier in the day, Mexico's foreign ministry said in a statement that it would need the help of the United Nations to coordinate overflowing wave of refugees from Central America. In April, which is the last time we saw this happen, Trump said he wanted to deploy more U.S. troops to the border with Mexico to secure it until the completion of his planned wall between the countries, which was one of his key election pledges. The Pentagon later authorized the National Guard to deploy up to 4,000 troops on the southern border in order to curb drug trafficking and illegal migration flow. Okay, so we have like the background setup where it started in April with this wave of immigrants in April, thumbnail sketch of what has happened up to current conditions. So that's our setup. But I want to go to this quote up here again. Quote, the UN High Commissioner for Refugees has become involved in the process to help Mexican immigration officials confront the current challenges. Not the president or the presumably president of Honduras, and not the United States, not Guatemala. Mexican immigration officials. Okay? Just keep that in the back of your mind along with the photos. Okay, next. This is, I wanted to give us a little fill-in. So this is was posted today, but it's actually from yesterday because this is an update. Migrants camp on bridge between Guatemala and Mexico as U.S. pressure mounts. Okay, now we're going to play a little clip. This is from Reuters, and so let's hear what the Reuters news pool has to report to us.
Thousands of migrants trekking in a caravan headed for the U.S. arrived at Mexico's doorstep Friday, setting up a showdown with Mexican officials who have vowed to stop the group from entering the U.S. after President Trump threatened retaliation.
If that doesn't work out, we're calling up the military, not the Guard, we're calling up the military. And we're going to have the military station. They're not coming into this country. They might as well turn back.
And he's made it clear to Mexico he's monitoring its response. Mexican authorities said Thursday they're asking the UN to help process the migrants to ensure only migrants with legitimate asylum claims come through. A move applauded by Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, who was meeting with Mexican officials on Friday in the country's capital.
We are quickly reaching a point which appears to be a moment of crisis. Record numbers of migrants. Foreign Secretary Vidagrán and I spoke about the importance of stopping this flow before it reaches the U.S. border.
The exhausted travelers, mostly Hondurans, say they're fleeing violence in their country and hope to seek asylum in the U.S.
God willing, the U.S. president will open the doors for us so we can go in.
What the migrants may not be aware of is that the U.S. president has seized on their trek to galvanize Republicans ahead of the midterms.
This will be an election of Kavanaugh, the Caravan, law and order, and common sense. That's what it's going to be.
But this isn't the first time a caravan has drawn the president's ire. In the spring, another caravan of Central American migrants were allowed to step into the U.S. to seek asylum.
All right, we thank Reuters for providing us with that information. Let's move on. We have not heard from this reporter, and this is via CNN, so we're going to play a short clip to give you an eyeball view. Again, please keep the images in mind that you're seeing.
At high noon, the bridge over the border was empty. But then, for some reason, Guatemalan police threw open the gates.
No, cerrado. It's closed. It's closed.
The first tried to form an orderly line, but That lasted only seconds as thousands surged behind them with a mixture of exuberance and frustration and determination. After a fraught half an hour, the crowd calmed itself, even turning on the few troublemakers. Some couldn't take the heat, though, and jumped into the river.
Our message is we're not criminals. We're coming over here because we want to work. We need a job. We need better, a better life. That's why we're here.
Do you understand that President Trump is going to use the pictures of thousands of people surging to the gates against you? He's going to point that to people and say, this is scary.
It's his politics, we respect, he's the president. He's the president of the United States. And with all due respect, we are not criminals.
Donald Trump is un anticristo.
Donald Trump is an antichrist, this man says. If he doesn't repent, he's going to hell. We are not criminals. We are workers and fighters. Eventually, Mexico opens to the caravan, but only a trickle are let through, women and children first, including Marta Torres, who tells me her husband was murdered by Honduran drug gangs, and her 3 other kids are still across the river.
Do you want to go to the United States? Have you heard, though, that President Trump doesn't want more people coming? And he's even separated families who try to come.
What should we do now, then? She says. I don't want my kids in the middle of crime. I don't want to have the lives of my children further destroyed.
Bill Weir joins us now from the Mexican side of the border. So what's going to happen to these people? What's the situation right now?
Well, that's a good question, Anderson. They did, as I said, opened up a trickle there, and they were moving them 3 busloads at a time to a refugee camp here on the Mexican side there. But at the rate we were seeing it, it will take days to get everybody off of that bridge. As you saw there, like Marta, she's seeking asylum from a dangerous place.
Okay, we're going to leave it there because we've got the point. Let's move on. Honduran president offers help. Now, this was published on this morning by Sputnik. Honduran President Juan Orlando Hernandez says he has requested permission from Guatemala's government to send forces to help Honduran citizens return home. Might I suggest, Senor, that you should have done that before they left your country? Just saying. Hernandez said on Twitter on Friday that he is willing to send civil protection agents to help Hondurans in Guatemala and was seeking transport for those who wish to return home. Well, according to the woman that we heard interviewed just prior to that, she doesn't want to return home. She believes that her children are in danger, and you saw her children with her. Some of them, not all of them, are with her. Some of them are still on the other side of the river, which was not brought out because we don't have permission from CNN. So under Title 17, Section 107, everything we're using in this is under the fair use provision for education and news commentary. Moving along. We'll continue this operation for as long as necessary, Hernandez said in a Twitter post. All right, so what we've seen so far is that these people, by the sheer numbers, are willing to storm the gates of any country who tries to bar them, including the United States, presumably based on the behavior we've seen thus far. Let's hear what, this is a comment I thought was kind of interesting in another article that is related to this story. John Cochran in comments says, I should be able to go to Disneyland for free. I also want to stay at the Disney Hotel and get subsidized while there. Free rides, souvenirs, and all for free. We don't have Disney theme parks where I come from. Down with the admission booth. Unfair. Interfering with my right to a better life. Dismantle the Disney security guards. Break down the barriers. If I can get a few thousand to join me, we can gatecrash Disney and land Disneyland and frolic to our hearts, frolic our hearts away. Free admission for all. John Cochran's cynical and sarcastic commentary kind of makes a very pointed picture. Paints for us a picture that we need to also keep in mind with these other pictures. Now we're going to move on to another story, but it's the picture I want you to keep in mind and the caption. So down in Australia, there's a question being posed. Quote, are the gods angry? Close quote. Massive storm hits Wentworth, Australia. The country's by-election vote tally has been overshadowed by a heavy storm that started in the morning in Wentworth and East Sydney, Australia, and this was posted this morning. We're not going to read the article because it's not, we're not talking about Australian politics per se. We're talking about the politics in the Americas, both North and South America, and inclusive of Central America. So look at this storm. For you storm watchers and weather geeks, this is an amazing picture. For the rest of us, I'd just like us to consider the symbolic question as these migrants roll in like a storm to storm the United States borders. And I just want to, the picture didn't, I magnified the original picture a lot, so I just want you to see this. Here is this massive, massive storm moving in, which actually, in point of fact, closed down the election voting stations in Wentworth in Sydney, Australia. But look down here. Look at this. Here's people, frolicking and swimming as this storm, they have to be aware of this storm right, over their heads, basically. But let's move on. So we had the scrolling, whoops, sorry about that. We had the scrolling thing. We've covered all these stories. So we're going to uncover this scrolling thing and bring up this, because we're not done yet. This is the part of the broadcast where I harass you about elections. You thought I was going to do it at the head of the broadcast. Nope, I'm doing it now. So let's cover up CNN right there and hit Halieus Media. This is our front page, halieusmedia.com, and our little thing is, our little election day countdown is still up, and the registration to vote deadlines are still up. 17 days to go, folks, and the closings for registration on Monday, Alabama and California. If you do not register by close of registration in Alabama and California on Monday, you will not be allowed to vote. Okay, and the next closure is Conneticut on 10:30. And also Nebraska, I did these in alphabetical order. Nebraska on 10/26. If you're not registered by then, you will not be able to vote. And then the remaining states after Connecticut closures on the 30th. North Dakota, there is no closure period, full stop. You must bring an ID. So you can register right before you vote in North Dakota. Everybody else, election day closings, Colorado. So on 11/6, the first Tuesday in November, you can register on election day. Colorado, the District of Columbia, Idaho, Illinois, Maine, Minnesota, Montana, New Hampshire, Utah, Vermont, Wisconsin, and Wyoming. Okay, that's the end of me nagging you for today. And this last story we're not going to go to because it's just there to remind me I want to include it in a different broadcast. So, I want us to take a look at this massive storm again, and I think I'm going to actually tag Reality Not Fiction and hand this story off to him if he hasn't already covered it. And so we want to go back to where's our image? This is a good enough one right here. There is an image of Honduran migrants, part of the caravan trying to reach the U.S., rest on the bridge that connects Mexico and Guatemala. So this would have been, yesterday or Thursday night in a place in Mexico I can't pronounce. And this was October 19th. This is a Reuters pool photo from ECL Marciano, I think. Marcelino. Sorry, Marcelino. To Marcelino, I'm sorry, I can't pronounce your name. I'm sorry. But anyway, you get credit for the photo. So, what do I want to say about this? Well, these people allege, if the woman is correct, a couple of things. She alleges that her country is, Honduras, is a dangerous place for her children. And as a mother, she wants to raise her children in peace and safety. There is nothing wrong with that. That is the responsible position to take as a mother. My question is, why is she traveling alone with her children? Where is the father of these children? Now, the father may be on the other side of the river still with the remaining children. We don't know because it wasn't reported on in the clip. According to the first man we saw in the bridge interview, he says, we're not criminals, we're workers, we want to work, we need jobs. But people don't seem to understand from other countries that you don't have a right to come into this country just because you want a job. And then the second man had some very interesting things to say about Trump. He said that Trump is the Antichrist and he will burn in hell. I am paraphrasing what this man said. That he is the Antichrist and he will burn in hell. That is a judgment call. And that man does not have the positional standing to condemn Trump to hell. He does not have that right. That puts him in the seat of the judge. And for Christians, that would be God. And so that man doesn't have the right to pass judgment on Trump, period. End of story. Nor, does anybody else have the right to condemn another person to hell. That's not our role, right, or responsibility. All right, let's move on. All right, I think that there is at least one person out there who's upset with me and is saying, oh, John 14, you are so harsh this morning. You are so, dispassionate to the plight of these people. And I would say to you, you may have a valid point, but in defense of my position, let me remind you of a couple of things. This is our Statue of Liberty, the symbol of our country, and on 8/2 of 2017, so October 2nd of 2017, the Huffington Post reported on something to do with the Statue of Liberty. The headline reads, "The text of the new Colossus." That's what the official title of the Statue of Liberty is. The poem on the Statue of Liberty, and the subheading is, quote, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free," close quote. That's the only line anybody ever remembers about the poem on the Statue of Liberty. But the Huffington Post goes on to point out to us, reading the text of this article, White House aide Stephen Miller caused a stir Wednesday when he argued that, quote, "The new Colossus," close quote, the poem written for and featured on the Statue of Liberty, wasn't relevant to the meaning of the statue because it was, quote, added later, close quote. A line from the poem, quote, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free," close quote, is often praised for symbolizing liberty in the United States. The poem was never intended to work as a policy statement and was part of a fundraiser to help pay for a pedestal for the Statue of Liberty to sit upon. And you can read more about Emma Lazarus, who penned the poem, at the Washington Post. Just Google it, Emma Lazarus. Okay, so let's read this poem. Not like the brazen giant of Greek fame, with conquering limbs astride from land to land, here at our sea-washed sunset gates shall stand a mighty woman with a torch, whose flame is imprisoned lightning, and her name, quote, "Mother of Exiles," close quote. From her beacon hand glows worldwide welcome. Her mild eyes command the air-bridged harbor that twin cities frame, quote, "Keep ancient lands your storied pomp," close quote, cried she, with silent lips, quote, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuge of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, the tempest-tossed, to me. I will lift my lamp beside the golden door," close quote. That was a poem as part of a fundraiser to build the platform on which Lady Liberty stands. So what's my point here? My point is that nowhere in the Constitution, which is the authority above all other authorities of this country, do we guarantee access to or immigration to anyone who applies. We have the Constitution and we have laws already on the books that deal with immigration for people in other countries, both under the asylum legislation and under, just regular, I'd like to change where I live, I'd like to come and live in your country legislation. I think that in the ensuing week, we have seen this 1,000 person caravan swell as they traveled up north from Honduras to Mexico through Central America. I think that the momentum of this caravan, which has gone from 1,000 people to 4,000 people, ought to be waking up the rest of the country. This is not, the huddled masses yearning to breathe free of the poem. These people are being encouraged and funded to some extent to storm the gates, if you will, right ahead of the midterm elections. This is a planned, staged event, and these people are being used as pawns. They are a body count, if you will, and innocent children who cannot make decisions for themselves are totally dependent on their parents to make good decisions for them, and this is not a good decision by these parents. I understand their plight. I understand being a mother who wants a better life for her children. I certainly have experienced that as a mother. However, the people that are organizing and encouraging these people through, false promises are doing something that is evil on the level of the individual and the family. They are giving them a promise of freedom and a better life that does not exist. They are giving them a guarantee, if you will. If you just get to the Mexican border between the United States and Mexico, you can get across and you can be free and you can have all the rights and privileges of an American citizen, no problem. That's not the case. It is not the case. Legally or morally, it is morally wrong to encourage these people to pick up and travel hundreds of miles with a promise that you don't have the right, responsibility, or authority to make. And I support President Trump's willingness to call out our U.S. military to defend our borders. That's what we pay them to do. It's not the right or responsibility of outsiders to storm the borders. And if there are people in authority in this country who are funding and encouraging this, I leave you to your ultimate fate. Somebody else will judge you for what you are doing and promising to these people. It's not my place to judge you, but it is my place to stand up and say, stop. You are not helping these people. And so with that, I am going to leave you for today. In some ways, this is even more a heavier subject than what we looked at yesterday. But we need to speak out and say no more. We have homeless veterans. We have homeless families. We have economic disparity in this country despite a booming economy. There are still people in overflowing our own shelters and our own temporary housing. We need to take care of those people first and make sure that they are safe and employed and able to take care of their families first. So with that, for the shepherd and I, we leave you on this sunny day. I said it was sunny yesterday, and it turned out not to be so. So instead of taking the dog out for a walk, I put together a much assembly required project. After over a year in this house, my bed needed to get up off the floor, and I put together a bed frame, and I'm now paying the price for it in the form of basal thumb arthritis issues. Not your problem, my problem. There's plenty of over-the-counter pain reliever in this house. It is a sunny day today. My anticipation is it will remain sunny. So with that, I hope you and your family are blessed. I hope if you are facing difficulty, you will ask God to help you and then accept the terms and conditions He provides for you. To paraphrase a passage from Scripture, I have never seen the children of the Most High begging for bread. I leave you with that encouragement, and until I see you again, have a wonderful day.